When people ask me, how long should my podcast be? My response is, it should be as long as it needs to be. But it probably should be shorter. Why? That's what we'll tackle in this video. How long should my podcast be? In our series, How to Start a Podcast. Hi, I'm Mike Carruthers from Perfect Your Podcast. It's no secret that people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. We have so many things trying to get our attention that it's hard for people to stay focused on one thing for very long. Yet many podcasters are asking listeners to turn over an hour of their time, or maybe longer, to listen to an episode of a podcast. Good luck. Podcasting can learn a lot from radio, and when radio ratings are taken, one of the measurements they take is something called time spent listening, or TSL. Essentially, it's the average amount of time a person spends listening to a radio station. And overall, radio's time spent listening has declined every year since the early 90s when they first started measuring it. Now, admittedly, podcasting's a little different. When someone deliberately plays your podcast, they're making a choice to listen. So perhaps they're more invested than when they turn on the radio and just get whatever they get. Nevertheless, your podcast is competing for people's attention along with a lot of other things. And to ask someone to give you an hour out of their day is asking a lot. Now, another important thing to consider is that people don't consume a podcast the way they do a TV show or a movie or a book or even the internet. The difference is there's a visual component to those things a podcast doesn't have. Think about it. When you watch a movie, you're in a darkened room with a huge screen demanding your visual attention. No one is sitting in a darkened room listening to your podcast. The fact is, people are likely doing something else while they're listening. They're commuting, or they're making dinner, or they're just sitting in their office looking out the window. But you don't have 100% of their attention the entire time. In another video, we talked about the importance of momentum, forward motion, keeping things moving. In a podcast, just like in a marathon race, the longer you have to do that, the harder it gets. Frankly, I have never heard a podcast over 30 minutes long that couldn't have been made better by shortening it. Never. There are two ways to tighten up a podcast and make it more succinct. Plan it better beforehand and edit it well afterwards. At a conference once, I remember seeing on the agenda a panel discussion on how to produce a podcast without editing it afterwards. I didn't attend, but I can tell you that is one really dumb idea. You're working in the medium of recorded sound. One of the advantages is that you can edit it afterwards before the world hears it. Why wouldn't you? You can make a so-so podcast sound great by editing it. It doesn't take that long, and in fact, it can be fun, creative, and rewarding. So how long should your podcast be? Well, of course it depends on the topic, but it depends a lot more on the audience. The longer you ask people to listen, the more spectacular it needs to be, or listeners will turn it off. In most cases, a half hour is a long time to keep people's attention. I've never seen any statistics on how often listeners come back to a podcast having turned it off partway through, but my guess is it's pretty low. Once you've lost them, they're gone. If you really do have a solid hour of material, make 2 podcasts out of it. In short, short is better. Look for other videos in this series, How to Start a Podcast, and visit our website for more great podcast training. I'm Mike Carruthers. Thanks for watching.